this is Trisha. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am excited to be hopping along with Altenew for the celebration of their Whimsical Wonder release. This is my second project for this release, so be sure to check out my blog, which is inkyplanner.com, for lots more information and another project video. So for today's project, I am going to be using this folk art stamp and die set, which I think is so cool. I love this intricate design and it has some great sentiments in here. I really love this long strip of polka dots. I feel like that would be a pretty cool, you could repeat stamp that and get some cool effects with that too. So as always, they have this inspiration guide included with their packaging. So there's lots of ways that you could use this set. I am going to color this set in today. There are lots of tiny little openings in this stamp. So you need, something with a fine tip to color it, but it is pretty easy to color. I am starting out here with just a piece of Neenah's Solar White, and it's cut to A2 size. I'm putting this right here in my MISTI. And I'm going to stamp this in a really light amalgam ink. This is Whisper from Gina K Designs. And this allows me to color with my alcohol markers without any bleeding or any issues at all. Pressing that down onto my page, I'm going to repeat that a time or two because it's the first time I'm using the stamp. And I do want to be able to see. I think this ink is intended for no line coloring. I do really want to be able to see the image so that I can color it more easily. But you'll see at the end I want to be able to emboss over it. So I just wanted something light to give me a guide. So I repeated this on two separate panels using the exact same technique. So I have two cards here. And as I said, I'm going to color these with alcohol markers. So I've just bought the 48 set of the Altenew alcohol markers, which is set A, set B, and set C. And I'm loving these markers so much. I want to get the two new sets that they just released, which look beautiful, especially for florals. These are new to me, so you can see I'm kind of swatching them out on the side, and I'm super excited to give them a try. One thing I love about these markers, especially for this project, is one of the tips is this pretty small bullet nib. It's not, extra fine, but because it's firm and it doesn't squish down when you color, you can kind of tap your way into some of these really tight areas here. So especially for a project like this where I'm not trying to go for big ombre blends, I'm just using this as straight up simple coloring. So it works just great to color in small areas and not worry about overlapping colors and getting a blend. So I'm going around my image, and as you can see, I'm just doing very simple coloring. I'm trying to remember to put the cap up there on the side so you can see what color I am using, but I think at one point, I forget to do that some of the times. So at one point I will put all the caps up there and you'll see all the colors. I used a couple of light greens, a couple of light purples, and a couple of light blues from Altenew. I did bring in some yellows from my Copic collection because the yellows that I have from Altenew are a little on the warmer, like orangier side, and I was looking for a real cool like lemony yellow, so I brought in, you'll see when I start coloring with the yellows, I brought in a couple of other colors. So as I said, I'm just kind of going around the page and trying to color these in. What's nice about this technique that I'm doing today is it doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to get some color back there behind the line art because I am going to restamp this and emboss over the top of it, and then that's going to bring all the detail back into this page. So I'm not worried about getting these outlines perfect. I'm just dotting in color, especially these tiny little areas. You can see I'm tapping to just get a little color back there behind the line image. So I've got some pale purples going on, some pale blues. As you can see, I'm bringing in some yellows, and even that one was a little too warm. So the most lemony, I guess I can say, coolest yellow, if that's a thing, that I have is this Y11, and it is so dry, so I was really struggling. I need to get a refill for this. I'm using both ends to just try to get a little color down on the page. And then I'm using this Y21 just to put a little shadow in. So the flowers on the side are the only place where I add any sort of two color blends. Everything else on this panel is just simple flat coloring with one color because it's all so small. But these larger flowers where I had a little more space to work with, and the illustration itself had a little bit of shading marks, like little indicators in the design where a shadow might be, so it felt like the right place to just drop a little bit of darker color and make these flowers look a little bit more dimensional. So again, I'm struggling with that super dry Copic, but I am loving the new Altenew markers. And like I said, the bullet nib for this particular application is excellent because you can really go around the fine detail here and not have a big brush tip that's kind of floppier. I don't know if that's the right word, but so I had a lot of fun. This is a little bit of a labor of love. You know, there's tons of little tiny detail, but if you don't want to color this image, gosh, I have so many other ideas I could do for this. You could stamp the whole thing and emboss it, and then do an emboss resist like ink panel all over, you know, ink an entire panel, which would go a lot quicker. Or you could watercolor wash over the top of an embossed panel to give you like a resist look. So there's a lot of other things you could do for it. Or you could just stamp it and leave it open, you know, stamp it in a beautiful color and leave the openings the color of the cardstock behind it. So there's a lot of ways to use this. If you have the time and you want to have some fun with coloring, I loved doing this. It's relaxing for me and therapeutic, but you do have to get in all these little tight spots. So I am working my way around here. Again, some of those side flowers are the only places where I did two colors, these petals, just to separate the petals from one another a little bit. And I love how these two really pale purples kind of, they blend really easily together and they create a really kind of desaturated, I don't know what that term is, mauve-y purple or just a pale lilac-y purple maybe. So you get the idea with the coloring. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to the spot where I show all the caps so you can see all the colors that I use. And I want to apologize, my video got a little blown out. I tried to zoom in so that you could see some of this fine detail a little better, and I think something got messed up with my lighting when I did that. So it's a little overlit. I apologize about that. But here I am finishing just the last little bit of my coloring up with this darker blue, which I only have just small touches of the blue in there. And then I repeated just a few elements on that second panel that we stamped at the beginning. So you can see I chose a few prominent elements and I colored them the exact same way. So they're just a duplicate on the side, and then I left the rest blank that I wasn't intending to use. So my plan for this is to go back to my MISTI and re-stamp, just like you see me doing here, and heat emboss. So I was testing the panel to make sure it was totally dry, which nothing was sticking, so that's good. So I put this whole colored panel right back into my MISTI, and I haven't moved my stamp. It's in the same position that it was. So when I re-stamp this, I'm going to do it with Versamark this time. It'll go right over the top of all of my colored images, and it'll bring that detail back. So all of the coloring is going to pop, and all the detail is going to come back around all of these tiny little intricate designs. So I'm putting some silver embossing powder all over this and tapping it off really well. And then I am going to heat set that embossing powder, and I just love how this turns out. You get this, you know, all of that detail came back to all those little areas, and you see the beautiful coloring, but behind this very shiny I don't know, kind of iridescent silver that catches the light when you tilt it in the, there you go. You can kind of see it there. I was hoping I could catch the light there as I'm heat embossing this. But I love how that panel turned out. I just love all these kind of pale, soft, springy colors together. And then behind that, that cool silver embossing powder is just great. So there's one little spot at the top. I think where I had placed my magnet, it just didn't allow me to stamp perfectly. So I just went right back in. That's the beauty of the MISTI. Inked up that area again, put a fresh little sprinkle of powder on there and heat that up just to finish off that image. So I'm going to do the same thing for the panel that I only partially colored. And same thing, I don't need to ink up my entire stamp this time. I just know the areas that I need to emboss. Treat that with my powder tool, give it a stamp with the Versamark, and I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss this with the silver powder as well. And this won't be a complete image, as I said. I'm just looking to get those few spots that I colored in so that I can isolate those on the page. Okay, so both of my panels are ready. I love how they turned out. Now I'm going to bring in the coordinating die set for this folk art stamp. And I'm going to line that up right over the top of the image. And this is a really intricate die as well. So it pops out all of the little negative space in between. And then a few of the colored elements also get popped out along the bottom, like some of those swirls and dots. So I am going to save the negative space on the bottom so that I can use that to help me reposition these, and then try to make sure that I have all those little pieces. You'll see I do end up losing one little dot. I don't know where it went, but I had to scrap that one because I lost it. So I've got a little panel of fog cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, and I have cut that slightly smaller than an A2 card, and I am popping this baby up with tons of foam tape. There's my daughter. She came down to say hi while I was filming, and she wanted to wave to everybody, so say hi to Catherine. So I am just going to go ahead and adhere this. I pulled all the release paper off my foam tape, and I am centering this. Now you can see if I had stamped this on a smaller panel, just little tidbits of this hang off the edge. So you do need a full A2 size to stamp this, but you can use a slightly smaller one to back it like I just did. So I've put the negative space, or a portion of it, in place so that I can position a couple of those little swirls and those little blue colored dots along the bottom. And here is where I realize that somehow I've lost one of my tiny dots. So I just omit it. I just decided, no one will ever notice. So I carefully peel that negative space out of the way, and you can see that was just a guide to help me get those in the right spot. There's the dot that I'm missing, and I just decided to forget about it. So back to that second panel that we created, my idea here was to fussy cut out a few of these elements and pop them up on top of the design just to give some extra interest. I'm using my fingers to sort of work the paper and get those edges to pop up a little bit, and then I will use foam tape in the center, so I've got extra dimension from the foam tape and the edges that are sort of curling up off the page, and it really adds just an extra intricate level of detail to this beautiful image. So I'm repeating the same thing with those yellow flowers on the side and the purple flower on the top. Just putting a little foam tape at the base of those. I did work them around with my fingers a little bit to try to get some curvature to that paper and kind of break down the fibers of the paper. And it just takes it up a notch to put a couple of portions of my image at even a higher level. You can do that with anything. You could do that with floral stamps or any image really where you select one portion of it and create extra dimension. So I love how this turned out, and I just couldn't bear to cover any of it with a sentiment. So I just decided to take a sentiment and stamp it on the inside of the card with a light gray ink and just leave the front as it was, because I just thought there was so much beautiful detail. I didn't want to cover anything up on the front. So I chose that sentiment that says, "Thank you for being the reason I smile." And I stamped it in the light gray ink just to coordinate with that gray cardstock that I'm using, and I felt I didn't want to go stark black. And then I'm just going to take my panel and center it on the front of my card, and I am done. And I love how this beauty turned out. I just think it's a work of art, and it is so pretty to cover a whole card panel like this in the front, and all that extra dimension that we got from popping the panel or the image on foam tape and then isolating a few extra dimensional elements as well. So I love how this turned out. I hope you had fun watching along, and be sure to check out all of the other stops on the blog hop for this awesome release from Altenew. I really appreciate your visit today, and I sure would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thanks, have a terrific day, and I hope to see you again real soon.